So let's go ahead and get started here. The PowerPoint wants to go ahead and work. There we go. So just an overview for this PowerPoint. I will be getting into the use case based on the video that you just watched. However, I want to make sure that we outline this so you sort of know the progression of how we're going to get into the software, talk about the use cases and the different hardware. First, there are multiple use cases for audio hardware, right? So we have audio and video for security, audio alone for maybe paging or background music. I additionally want to talk about how we integrate the Axisway, whether that be with partner software, different solutions that we offer, cameras. I do want to touch on the audio hardware that we currently offer in the portfolio today, some of the added value that we can bring to the sales cycle, and then obviously the benefits of IP audio over an existing passive system. So here's that actual case that we're going to discuss. And what is the solution? On the video you heard, how do you pay for this? How do you fix it? Hopefully you don't have to ask those questions because you can proactively prevent the damage. So in a situation like this, we want to make sure that we are integrating network surveillance. This is obviously going to provide some sort of passive deterrence, right? So we have a camera that's mounted, somebody sees a camera and they don't necessarily want to vandalize the turf because they know they're being recorded. However, should the event occur, we do have a means of collecting evidence and then providing it for suspect identification should a case be brought up. The next thing that we want to make sure we integrate are video analytics. There are a lot of things that can trigger a video event, so we want to be smart about it. We want intelligent detection. We want to know if there's a person on that field. We don't just want to see something like video motion detection that's going to be giving us incorrect triggers throughout maybe an evening or sending alarms to a security operator that are false alarms. So we want to make sure that our trigger is highly accurate. And finally, we want to take that passive deterrence and turn it into active deterrence with an audio device, including a speaker, which is extremely easy to configure and has multiple applications, can provide that active deterrence so that when somebody does go onto that field when they're not supposed to be there, if they didn't see the camera, they're then getting an audio alert telling them to leave the area. So really, when we install a system like this or we design a system like this, we want to think about three things. We want to see it, we want to say it, and we want to do it. The camera's going to see it, the speaker's obviously going to say it, and the analytic, which does it all, is going to tie those together. Like I mentioned, we're going to be turning passive video surveillance into active deterrence to hopefully deter those crimes or maybe the vandalism on that $1.4 million football field. And this is going to proactively prevent it, so therefore you don't necessarily have to, like I mentioned before, ask the questions of how do you then pay to repair the damages to that field, or any asset for that matter. Additionally, this type of system is highly customizable and very scalable. You can have a single network surveillance camera tied into multiple speakers, or a single speaker tied into multiple cameras. However, if you encounter, say for example, an application where a camera might not be the best fit, you can also go with a network radar. Our new network radar will actually classify via individuals, vehicles, the speed of those individuals, and you can actually create different prioritized areas so that we can run triggers off of a radar as well. Here we can actually see a radar install on that exact field that was actually shown in the news clip that we watched earlier. So in the right-hand image, you can see that the radar is mounted on the grandstands, and we actually have the radar's detection area overlaid on that field. The two red triangles that you're seeing are actually the two individuals that you can see in the left-hand image, their direction, their speed, and then I'm not sure if you can see it on the screen, but it is classifying them as human beings. So we can actually draw prioritized areas, whether that be the field, the track, and create audio alerts based on those different areas. So if a human enters the track, we could have an audio alarm that says, please leave the area. However, once they make it onto the field, there could be a more aggressive alarm that says, the police are being dispatched, leave the area immediately, something like that. So it's a very scalable and easy to customize solution. And the left-hand image here, we're actually seeing a PTZ, right? So this is a PTZ camera that is being driven by the radar, and it's following these individuals. So we can actually include a PTZ camera to verify those alarms in the case that we actually need to verify it or have an operator watching it, etc. There's a lot that we can do with these systems, and there's a lot of deep integration that can take place and be had. So here's actually a video of audio deterrence in action. I'm not sure if you'll be able to hear it, I don't believe there was a mic present, but you'll see that these individuals are going to be getting out of their vehicle. I believe they're doing some sort of illegal dumping in Las Vegas. The dumpster might have been the trigger area, because as soon as this gentleman enters that dumpster, an audio alert is playing, and you can see them begin to move faster, leave the area, and we can see that the illegal dumping actually never ended up taking place. So they leave the area, right? We don't even have to worry about pursuing an investigation. We don't have to worry about scrubbing video the next day or trying to determine who these individuals are, because the event was proactively prevented. So how does this all hook up? Well, here we can see a very standard video surveillance sort of riser, right? We have an NVR, which is here as a terminal, a switch, and a Q35 series camera. We also have a C1310E, which is our network horn speaker, and these all hook up the same way, all data cable. So a speaker is going to hook up, single PoE run, back to a switch, no amplifier necessary, no equalizer necessary, no audio input required. Everything lives on the speaker. It's an endpoint on the network. So what was occurring in that last use case is that a video analytic living on the edge in that camera essentially sends a trigger. That trigger then communicates to the speaker to play a specific pre-recorded message. That message is then played, and hopefully our event is proactively prevented. So there's not a whole lot that goes into the configuration of this system, and there's not a lot of pieces that you have to worry about putting together to make it work effectively. So I would like to take some time to touch on the different speakers that we currently offer in our portfolio. And the first one is the C1310-E. This is actually a network horn speaker that is outdoor ready. It is IP66, so it can be placed anywhere outside and be perfectly fine. And like all of our speakers, this is a self-contained system that is powered via one data cable run PoE. So the audio clips live on the speaker. We actually have a software called Access Audio Player that lives inside the speaker itself. No need for an amplifier, no need for an equalizer. One cable run back to your switch. All that is required is a switch port and obviously the power for the speaker. This particular device outputs about 121 decibels 1 meter away. That's how we would gauge the sound pressure level, which is what we call it, because obviously as you get farther away from the speaker, that volume is going to diminish. So think about 80 to 90 decibels is going to be a motorcycle starting up. So this is actually a very, very loud speaker, and it's fantastic for alarming, public address and paging, as well as security. And we can see here how it's mounted to the exterior of a building. I believe this is a truck bay, and it's mounted via 2 bolts that go right into that bracket on the backhand side. So it's very easy to mount and very clean. Next is the C1004-E. This is actually a cabinet speaker, and it is outdoor ready. However, we suggest mounting it under soffit and fascia. It is not IP66, so maybe on a porch or something like that. And we want to make sure that we're using the right speaker for the right application, right? So you wouldn't necessarily use this speaker outside to page to a truck bay. It just doesn't have the sound pressure level that the C1310 has. So this can be used for music, background music, announcements, paging, white noise sound masking, a couple different things. Particularly, it can be used inside. Here we can see it mounted in, I believe, what is a retail application with a speaker, a camera near it. That camera is most likely running an analytic. We can talk about how we can use those in retail applications here momentarily. It mounts in a very similar way to the C1310. Very simple, very easy, very clean, and it can obviously be mounted horizontally or vertically. And if you can see in the image, there's a little Axis logo. You can actually turn it so that it's oriented the proper way based on how the speaker is mounted. Next is the C2005. This is a very similar speaker to the cabinet speaker in terms of volume output. However, it's just a different form factor, right? This is a recessed ceiling speaker. And depending on what our design dictates or what's required for the application is going to depend on, are we wall mounting the cabinet speakers? Are we ceiling mounting the recessed ceiling speakers? What kind of ceiling is there? So there are a couple different things to think about, but really this is form factor. It can be used for very similar applications as the cabinet speaker: music, announcements, paging, security, and once again, this is a self-contained system, just like the horn speaker. Recesses right into drop ceiling. You can cut it into a hard ceiling if you'd like. Very easy to install. Next is the C1410, and this is our newest speaker. We call it our network mini speaker, and it is the piece of hardware that I am the most excited about, because if you look at the image at about 6 o'clock, you can see a very small dot. That's actually an integrated motion detector. So that motion detector can actually trigger events on the speaker without anything else. You don't need a camera. You don't need I/O ports. You don't need anything like that. You can have events triggered based on motion detection. Really good use case for this might be a retail scenario. Say, for example, I own a shirt store, and I'm going to deploy C1410s throughout my entire shirt store. And during business hours, I'm going to play background music and then have, let's say, sales announcements at predetermined intervals playing, maybe once an hour. But this particular speaker is over the purple shirt display. And today, I really want to get rid of my purple shirts. I've had them a long time. Nobody's buying them. I'm going to sell them at 50% off. So this particular speaker, I'm going to set up an audio alert in it that when the motion is detected above the purple shirt section, this particular speaker will play, "Welcome to the purple shirt or the shirt store. Purple shirts are 50% off today." So you can actually use these speakers as a sales driving tool. So you can actually have an ROI based on this hardware in your store. Where this is particularly useful is after the store closes. So we can schedule that to play during store hours, right, or office hours. However, maybe on the weekends when nobody's there, we want this to be used as an intrusion detection system. So it can supplement an existing intrusion detection system, or it can be used as an intrusion detection system all on its own. When those motion detectors detect maybe somebody that shouldn't be there, they can play alarms and additionally maybe send an email, send a text alert. It depends on how you set the system up. But this is a very powerful speaker, and there are a lot of applications out there that it can be used for. Security, public address, white noise sound masking, music. It's very versatile. It's very small, has a very wide throw and dispersion, and the addition of that motion detector makes it particularly powerful. Here we can see it being installed. It's about the size of your hand. If you could hold the entire speaker in your hand. It's very small, discreet, but also very loud if it needs to be. And mounting is also very simple.
Hey Vince, we have a quick question in the chat.
Sure,
what is the distance? What is the distance the motion detection can detect?
So the motion detector is 3 times the diameter the speaker is from the ground. So if you have a speaker mounted at 30 feet, you would have 90-foot diameter motion detection underneath the speaker. Keep in mind that this particular speaker has a 4 times dispersion per the height on audio. So you're going to have greater audio overlap when you are putting motion detection back to back. So that's something to keep in mind. The motion detection and the audio throw are not equal, but to answer your question, it is 3 times the mounting height of the speaker. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move on. If there are any other questions, Quentin, just chime right in. Let's talk about some of the features. Like I mentioned before, these are standalone audio solutions. They are their own audio speaker, essentially equalizer, amplifier, all the clips live on them, all the inputs are self-contained in the unit, and this means that it is tremendously scalable. You don't have to worry about multiple amplifiers across MDFs, IDFs, running speaker wire, doing resistance calculations. You run a single data cable, plug the speaker in, and you are good to go. It is ready to be pulled into any zone, anywhere, as long as it's on the same network. Additionally, they're IP-based. This means that they can be centrally managed. You don't have to go to those data closets to maybe adjust the white noise generator that you're using for sound masking. Maybe you'd like to change the playlist that the speakers are currently playing, or use an internet streaming source. You can do that all from your laptop. They also have a single cable run, PoE powered. This means that installation is incredibly easy. If you do it in conjunction with a video surveillance system, you can do all your pulls at the same time. Additionally, if you do it as a standalone system, it's pulling data cable just as you would with a standard either network infrastructure job or a video surveillance system. All the speakers also have an integrated microphone. I want to make this very clear that the microphone does not record things occurring in the scene, right? The microphone is used for 2 things. The first thing is used for self-health testing. With a passive system, one of the difficulties is knowing for sure if the speakers are actually working. You have to be local to that particular speaker, and if you have a very large installation, you have to have somebody testing the speakers at the head end, and then somebody looking, making sure the other speakers are working at their actual location themselves. These can be self-health tested. You can test them anytime. They play a tone, and they listen for that tone and let you know if they need to be calibrated or if they're properly working. There is software, like I mentioned, native to each speaker. This means that they can be easily configured, and I'll show you this when we actually get into my C1410 here momentarily. It's called Access Audio Player, and you can set different speakers up in a leader-follower configuration. So you can have one speaker as the leader of a zone, configure everything on that speaker, and it will essentially output it to all the other speakers attached in that zone. And finally, here at Axis, we think big, we act as one, and we are always open. So the speaker does have an open API, which means that there is limitless integration. It integrates perfectly fine with Axis hardware, and it can integrate into any sort of VMS or with any other software, given that it is also an open software and there's an API that can allow those two devices to speak to one another. So we do have some other audio devices available. These are the ones that I find particularly useful for the conversation today. The first is the 2N SIP mic. This is essentially a paging microphone that has an integrated audio management server built right into it. So this is a single PoE cable run. It's powered via PoE, single cable run to a switch. And this can essentially manage all of your audio devices in terms of paging and playing different alerts to different zones. You would essentially hit the IP of this device, go into the graphical user interface via a web browser, and configure it that way. If you look on the device itself, you can see 2 rows of 6 buttons each on the right-hand side with labels. Those can actually be configured to either A, select a zone that you want to page down to, so you would then press the talk button and talk down through those speakers in real time, or you can actually set them up to play a particular alert. Say, for example, you wanted to page in a school, the gym, and you wanted to play the bell or something like that. You could press the button and it would automatically play that bell. Next is the C8033. This is actually what we call our network audio bridge, and it bridges the gap between a passive system and an IP system. So it allows us to play analog audio over a network or digital audio over an existing passive network. This can be used when you have a legacy system, but maybe the customer wants to move over to IP, or they want to centrally manage their speakers. You can actually plug this into the amplifier. This doesn't replace the amplifier, doesn't replace the equalizer. All it does is allow it to tie into the network. You can put an SD card into this device, load your playlist on, and then you can just play that playlist from your computer into your existing passive system. Next is the C8210. This is actually a network audio amplifier. This would replace the amplifier in an existing passive system. So if you have passive speakers currently installed, you can actually put this either in the field or in the IDFs or MDF, run the speaker cable back to this particular device, and then manage those speakers via this device on the network. It will power the speakers. As long as you do the proper resistance calculations, this is perfectly suitable for replacing an amplifier, equalizer, and getting that out of a rack and getting an existing passive system onto a network. So here at Axis, we have a tremendous amount of support that we can offer you. The first is regional support. If you don't know who your regional sales managers are, I can make an introduction. We can get you in touch with them, as well as your inside sales account managers. They are going to help you if you have any questions about hardware, design, where to get pointed in the right direction. Reach out to them. They are here to help you. Additionally, I'm part of the technical team. We have a variety of field sales engineers that can also assist with system design, choosing the right hardware, and maybe some of the deeper technical questions that you might have. Here's
Hey, Vince.
Yes.
We have one more question in the chat.
Sure.
Can you use the audio bridge with this amplifier?
So you could, but I don't know when you would actually want to do that. The audio bridge is essentially going to allow you to tie into an existing amplifier. That amplifier offers all of the same features of the audio bridge. It just replaces your existing amplifier, right? So you wouldn't necessarily need both of them. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. This is probably the biggest value add that we can offer when it comes to audio. Obviously, other than our regional support based on our employees, right? And it's called the Axis Audio Design Service. This is a free service where we will help design, propose, and assist in the sales cycle for an IP audio project. So essentially what would happen is you would approach Axis with a potential opportunity, and we would procure the prints, determine the ambient sound pressure level, maybe even discuss with the customer some of their needs. And then we would use an advanced acoustic simulation software to lay the speakers out and provide a heat map of the audio dispersion, which you can actually see here in the image on the slide. This is an incredibly valuable deliverable because first, it can be used, the report that is generated from the software that is, it can be used as an installation guide for technicians. So it can tell them this speaker goes in this area, points in this direction at this particular angle. But it can also be used to show the end customer sort of a proof of concept on audio. With video, it's much easier to visualize what you're going to be getting before the system's actually installed. But audio, because you can't see it, it's sometimes hard to conceptualize what you're actually going to be getting. This allows you to do that. Finally, there's a tremendous amount of education and training available. We are currently all on a webinar about audio. These happen all the time. I highly suggest you sign up for them. We, in the new COVID world in which we live, have now virtual instructor-led trainings. It is a scheduled, essentially WebEx with an actual Axis trainer. It's about an hour to 2 hour and a half, 2 hours long, from topics ranging from Axis camera station, audio, perimeter defender, inner area protection, radar. We have a tremendous amount of education and resources, particularly with audio. We have online courses that you can access at any time. I believe there's an intro to audio, essentials of audio, and technical audio, and then a lot of on-demand webinars too, based on particular topics. Finally, our technical training team, I think, is one of the best in the industry. And here in the Mid-Atlantic, I think we have one of the most fantastic technical trainers, Dave Johansson. So if you have any questions or if you have an opportunity or need to pull in a technical trainer, we can also do that as well. So let's actually take a look at a use case that doesn't incorporate video. So let's say, for example, you're approached for a PA system that does not initially include security. I would ask that you engage the sales team, right? We are here to help you. So like I mentioned before, we're going to assist in coordinating the design logistics. We're going to determine what are the walls made of? What's the ceiling composition and the floor composition? What's the ambient sound pressure level? Are we looking to do paging? Maybe we are looking to do paging and also security and background music. So we're going to determine the appropriate hardware and the appropriate mounting locations for that hardware based on that acoustic simulation software that we do the design with. We'll then provide a visual coverage report. You can see parts of one of those actual reports that I did are snipped out and here in the slide. We can provide that to you and your customer as well. And then we can also assist virtually or on site with the setup and get you trained up and maybe explain some of the nuances of really dialing in the audio system. And then obviously we want to make sure that we're getting trained as well, so we can provide that. So here's an actual use case, right? So these designs that you're seeing actually come from a design that I did for a large warehouse that had a tremendously large warehouse floor, an office area that was made up of an open space as well as some closed offices. There were multiple locker rooms scattered throughout the warehouse floor. There was a rear loading dock that they needed PA systems for because of tractor trailers back there. They wanted to be able to page out to the drivers. There were different storage areas on the left and right-hand side of the building. So it was a very involved system that was approximately 300 audio devices. But the thing is that it can be done with network audio. You don't necessarily need a passive system. But really the question then becomes, how do you manage a system of this size? Well, like I mentioned, we have Axis Audio Player, which is native to all our speakers. And you can schedule with Axis Audio Player. You can play background music, stream internet radio. You can put in different pre-recorded announcements, etc. But you can only schedule for a week. If you have to do any sort of deeper integrations, such as maybe we're doing multiple zones that have similar speakers or the same speakers across different zones laid out differently, different prioritization levels. Maybe we have sound masking occurring with background music. Maybe we're also going to be incorporating a PBX or a SIP server for paging. We want to then move into Axis Audio Manager Pro, which is our next level of software that we offer, and I will show you that as well. If we get into maybe automation or deep integration with existing systems, we have a variety of Axis development partners that provide fantastic audio software that we can then begin to incorporate as well, and we can help assist in determining the best software requirements for the needs. So finally, let's go over some key takeaways. There are a tremendous amount of benefits of network audio as opposed to an existing passive system. First, it's scalable and it's intelligent. It can self-health test. It's a single PoE cable run that goes to the speaker. It's very easy to install. Integration is tremendously simple. It's a switch and a switch port. There's no need to have multiple amplifiers, equalizers, multiple power sources for the speakers scattered throughout a building, and then you have to try and reconcile all of the audio at once between those different areas. So you're saving on rack space, you're saving on power, And maintenance is also incredibly simple because it is centrally managed, scalable, and intelligent. One of the issues with trying to troubleshoot an old passive audio system is that it's difficult to normally determine where the problem is. They're easy to fix, but the problem is obviously determining where the fix needs to occur. Because they are IP and they can self-health test, maintenance is also drastically easier. And once again, like I mentioned, it's centrally managed. So you pull up the GUI or the software on your laptop, and you can do everything from one location. Finally, if there are any takeaways that I really want you to leave with, it's that audio is actually fairly simple and it's very easy. And it can always parallel video, and video can most times parallel audio. Say, for example, you are installing a video surveillance system. A lot of times there's an opportunity to install a speaker to provide active deterrence, like we mentioned in the football field use case. However, in a use case that maybe the warehouse that doesn't initially have security, there are a lot of video analytics that currently exist that can provide value to a PA system if you were to integrate a camera with video analytics and then communicate to the speakers in the PA system. So always keep that in mind. They're going to parallel each other a lot of the time. Another thing is that all the solutions I currently mentioned today are available. Any speaker, any device, any software, it can be had today. And you can get a quote from distribution on that if you have any questions. Finally, our services are tremendous. We're here to help you. We're here to do the heavy lifting. We can add value to the customer, and we can simplify the sales process on your end. All you have to do is communicate with us, and we are more than happy to help.